Hey guys, Jesse the Reader here, and we are at the Epic Reads Facebook Live Lounge at Bookcon, and I'm joined by two fantastic authors here. We've got Victoria Aveyard, author of the Red Queen series, and Cora Carmack, author of Roar. Here are the two books right here. Awesome. How are you guys doing today? Doing good? Enjoying Bookcon? Yeah?
I'm enjoying this view.
Nice.
Right? It's very special.
It's amazing.
Okay, I want you guys to start off this live show.
I love world building. I sometimes get really into the weeds with world building, and it can be a bad thing, but it just getting really in deep with creating new places and new characters and religions and languages, and it's all really, really nerdy and cool.
That part's really fun too, just because like there's so much more into it than readers ever like realize. Like you have these like long, like backstories for things that will never like make it in the plot, and it's like literally like you just know it so well, which makes it really fun. And then also I think part of the cool thing about world building is you get to talk about parts of our world that like that would be overt if you talked about them like in a contemporary novel, but like ours we get to really sort of examine things about society and human condition and things like that. So I think it's fun.
Sugarcoat the pill.
So if you could live in any fantasy world, which one would you live in?
I would need guarantees, first of all.
Right.
So if I was like, Middle Earth, you must guarantee I'm either an elf or a hobbit. Probably a hobbit I would fit more in better. I don't want to live in Westeros by any stretch of the imagination.
I am a giant fan of Kristen Kishore's Graceling series.
Okay, yeah.
Specifically, though, my favorite is Fire. I love that. It's such a weird, like, oddball world with all the, like, rainbow-colored monsters.
Right.
But I think that would be a lot of fun to live there. Yeah.
Okay, we have a question from Ella, and she asks, if you could tell your younger writing self anything, what would you tell yourself? Like advice or anything?
My younger self, my advice is always stay weird. It's going to pay off.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. I always have a weird thing about these questions that, like, I wouldn't change anything because in a way, all the things that I sort of struggled through or went through made me who I am. And so it's like if you change something, the writer brain in me is like, oh, the ripple effect.
Yeah, the butterfly effect. What's going to happen?
Mine's similar. I would just sort of tell myself to keep doing what I'm doing and not worry so much. That's just to trudge on, basically. All
right, we have a question from Hunan. I think that's how you say your name. Who's your biggest inspiration?
I was lucky enough to grow up with the Harry Potter books. So I was 9 when I started reading those and 17 when the last one came out. So I went to Hogwarts. So definitely Jo Rowling is an insane inspiration to me.
Yeah, I pretty much have the same answer. I was 11 when I started reading Harry Potter, and I sort of grew up with it. Most of my best friends, we are best friends because we love Harry Potter, and that's how we sort of like bonded together. So definitely, like it's one of those. It's the series that made me like. I think when I was really little, reading for me was like a way to be like smart and competitive and like be the best at things. I was totally a perfectionist. And Harry Potter was like, man, I loved that series so much. I just didn't ever want to leave it. Like for a while, I only read Harry Potter. Like I would just like finish the book and like flip right back to the beginning and just read it again, you know? And so like, I would be a totally different person if I had never read Harry Potter.
Right, same. We would all, Ella asks, how do you select the name of your characters?
I'm weird because some of them will just come out of nowhere. A lot of the main characters came out of nowhere. There were a couple that were constructed, and at least for Red Queen, I know I wanted some Latin-based. So it's very simple, like the Calor brothers, Calor means heat. So I'm like, okay, they control fire. And then 3 years later, people are like, oh my God, it means heat. And I'm like, it took you a while.
Like I planned that.
I'm not as smart as you think I am.
I have some that like, that you just know, like, before you even really, like, get into them, you just know. So my main character was that way. Like, as soon as I sort of had the idea and I started writing everything down, like, I already knew her name was Aurora. It was just, like, a thing that, like, happened. But other times, I get names from everywhere. I think we all sort of search the baby name sites. I also steal names from readers, though. In my adult books, I have 2 or 3 characters who are named from readers. Like, I have a girl named Dylan, and I met her at a signing and just was like, I'm going to take your name. And she, like, laughed, and I was like, no, I'm serious. You just wait.
Is she in a book
yet? She's already, awesome. That was the second book of my Rescue University series. And then the third book in that series also has, I met a girl in Houston named Antonella, and so I took her name too.
Name. Yeah.
And I call her Nell is her name. So. So yeah, if you meet me, your name could end up in a book. You never know.
It's a good incentive to go to signing.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Kayla, I don't know if that's how you pronounce your name, I'm sorry. The last TV show that you watched / binge watched.
I'm in the middle of the new season of House of Cards right now.
Nice.
And it is both fantastic to binge because I love the villain couple and I love the underworlds, but at the same time I'm like, oh my God, it's so topical and too close.
Right.
Yeah, like too
real.
close.
I haven't watched it yet because I'm scared of it.
So,
I'm like, I don't know if I'm in a good enough
I know
place
I'm
to
in
watch
too deep.
it.
I'm in the hurricane.
Yes.
But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just finished watching Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, so that was a lot of fun. That cheered me up a lot. I'm actually currently, I'm currently binging a show called Winona Earp on Netflix.
Oh, I've heard that is so good.
It's sort of, honestly, what I compare it to is like sort of early season Buffy right now, because she's an ancestor, or she's a descendant of Wyatt Earp. And like everyone that Wyatt Earp killed in the Old West days comes back as a demon, like constantly. And so the Earp heir has to like keep them in check or whatever. And so it's a little, it's a little campy a little bit, because you can sort of tell like they've got a lot of like one-liners.
Right.
But at the same time, like it's just so cool. It's this weird mix of like old Western, but it's set contemporary, but then it's got a paranormal aspect. And I was just like sold.
It's kind of like female supernatural, and that show has always needed more of a female presence. So it's nice that someo's filling that void.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm about like halfway through that right now.
I'm gonna have to add that to my list.
It's really something fresh and different, and I like it a lot.
Nice. Okay, Lucia asks, how do you get rid of a writer's block?
Writer's block for me means one of two things. It means that either I need a palate cleanser, I'm too close to the work, I need fresh eyes, or what I'm working on isn't working, and I need to sort of cut the dead flesh back to wherever the project was working. So if that can be 500 words, that can be 5,000 words, and it sucks. And you usually hope it's take a couple of days, work on something else, come back. All of your problems have been solved. But usually it means you need to figure out another way to do what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah. Mine's usually, I have like anxiety, and so mine's always like tied up in my anxiety. And so I have to figure out, is something really wrong, or is just my lizard brain being like, you're terrible. And so usually what I do similar. I'll like either read something, get my mind off of it, or I'll go back and sort of read through things and see if I can find where it goes wrong. Other times I'll sort of write by hand. Like if it's something, usually if it's like a scene I'm scared of and that's why I can't do it because I like am not ready to do it yet, I'll start writing by hand. And there's something about it that it makes my brain slow down and think things through, but also it sort of gives me permission to screw up because I know I'm going to have to type it up later. And so there's like time to move and change things, but like just something about writing it by hand just sort of gives me permission to like move on, I guess.
Cool. Krista asks, do you read a lot during the writing process? And if so, what do you read?
That's a good question, because I know I have sometimes I have a really hard time reading YA fantasy while I'm drafting, and sometimes it helps fill the tank, and it's kind of like a cheat. It's almost like taking some sort of Adderall, because you'll start reading someone else's YA fantasy, and you're like, I want to do it, I want to do it, I want to do it, and you get excited. But I find reading nonfiction, too, is really helpful to just keep that muscle going.
Yeah, similarly, sometimes I can read like what I need to write, you know, and it'll sort of figure things out, but then you have to be careful, obviously, that you're not like filling in things like and not realizing it, you know. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll sort of read in a different genre. So I write, you know, this is my first YA fantasy book, but I also write adult romance. And so like when I'm doing romance, I'll read a lot of like YA fantasy or YA contemporary or paranormal. And then when I'm writing YA, I'll read a lot of romance. Usually that's how I sort of keep abreast of both sides of my career and like what's happening in the market. So.
Cool. So we've got one more question. This one comes from Allie, and they asks, what's the most exciting part of creating a character?
I think the moment when the character does something you are not planning for, and suddenly it
become real, and you're like,
sounds ridiculous, and it sounds like something so cliche, and it doesn't really happen, but it does. There are moments where the character takes the wheel out of your hands and makes a hard right that you did not know they were going to take, and you're just like, I don't know where this is coming from, but it becomes sort of a third.
Or even when you learn something about the character that you didn't know, like, and it's not just like their actions, but like you're just writing along and you're like, oh my God, like there's this huge backstory that I never planned, but it somehow fits perfectly. And you're like, did I do that on accident or did I really know in the back of my head?
Vessel. Okay.
Right? Yeah, I also, for me, I think the first time, like, I think we love, like, Genesis as authors, like the things when you're creating something and it's new and fresh. But I think the other time that I sort of love is just when, like, a reader finds a character that they really, really connect with. Because I think all of us started as readers, you know, and, like, we always, I think for me, like, when I get most excited about writing is when I read a really great book and I'm like, I want to write something that will make someone feel the way this book makes me feel, you know? And so there's nothing, like, more like rewarding than when a reader like really latches onto a character of yours and you're like, it was all worth it. Found that one person. That's all I needed. That one person. And now I can consider it a success.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having us.
We'll be doing Facebook Live interviews on Epic Reads page all day, so stay tuned, guys. Bye.